Hi guys, today I want to show you something that I actually built almost 3 years ago. It was before I started making videos, but I think it would be fun to try to explain to you guys exactly how I built this. It's a pretty cool little DIY toy. My kids love this. This is a DIY sit and spin toy. It's a really easy build. It is probably going to sound more complicated than it actually is. So I'm going to kind of take this partly apart to show you how this works so that you can get it done pretty easily. If you have any questions, there's instructions and a few more build pictures or assembly pictures on my website. I'll put a link to that in the description. So the two wood rounds are actually from, you can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's. They're 18-inch pre-made wood rounds, so that's really easy to start with. So there you just basically have to apply the finish before assembly so that you have it looking the way you want to before everything's put together. The top I think is 7-inch, the top is a 7-inch round that I cut from some wood. I had some scrap wood lying around. So jigsaw works perfectly for that. If you can find maybe a bowl in your house or something that's already a perfect circle that's around 7 inches to just use as your guide, even easier. And then the pipe is, I think it's 8 inches. Yeah, that looks about right. So, and it's sold in the stores this way. Galvanized pipe, 8 inches, and I have 2 flanges with it. So if you can see here, I know it's a little bit difficult, so the website would be probably a little bit better for close-ups at this point. The exact information about the pipe that I used and the flanges I used is going to be on the website with links to it, so it can help you get your product spot pretty quickly. The hard thing to show you with it assembled is the Lazy Susan that I use. So let me tell you, I had 3 different types of Lazy Susan hardware on hand at the time that I was designing this that I actually tested and tried out along the way. The first 2, I didn't really like the way that it was working so much. So there's this little piece of cardboard here. You can actually cut and use a 1/4 inch scrap wood or plywood for this too. I think it would last a lot longer. But at the time I just went with this little scrap cardboard and it's been holding up. Like I said, I built this almost 3 years ago. So anyway, that little piece of cardboard or plywood that you would cut hides the cut hole here. The thing about putting a hole into the center of this wood is you aren't going to be able to get it exactly matched up center, or at least I couldn't. Most people probably won't be able to get it exactly matched up center. So when this thing spins, it's going to get a little bit closer to the pipe in certain spots and a little bit further away in other spots, and it could be a little bit of a pinch hazard. So this thing's great for making sure little legs and fingers and stuff don't go down in there while you're using the spinning toy. But this hole, I had to keep, when I was playing around with the other Lazy Susan hardware, it just wasn't working. It wasn't staying in a perfect circle track the way you would expect. I don't know what the deal was with that hardware, but I've got a link to the exact hardware that I ended up using and that works better. So check that out too, because apparently the Lazy Susan hardware does make a difference when you're building your sit and spin toy. Another thing that I want to point out, which is going to be really hard to see on video, you probably won't be able to see it at all. When I made this sit and spin toy, you access the Lazy Susan to connect it to both wood rounds, both 18-inch wood rounds. You access it from the bottom through a little hole. My sit and spin has 2, just because I was playing around with different wood or different Lazy Susan hardwares. So this hole actually wouldn't be on your build. This is just on mine because I was using a different Lazy Susan originally. This is the hole that I'm actually going to use to access my Lazy Susan right now. So to do that, the Lazy Susan hardware that I used has 4 corners, you'll see in a minute, and I will line up that hole with each of the 4 corners as I spin it around and unscrew it. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so I removed the screws that was holding the Lazy Susan to this top wood round. So I'm just gonna lift it up and use this little paint can to prop it up for you all, just temporarily here. While I explain something to you real quick. Okay, so this is a smaller version of the Lazy Susan I use. I think this is probably 4 inches. The one I ended up using, I think, is sold as 6 inches. It's the biggest square one I could find on Amazon. If you can find an even larger, an even bigger square one, which is the square ones are the ones that I ended up being able to use for this toy, then you can even make this a bigger sit and spin for adults if you want to, because if you're like me and you feel a little nostalgic, it is kind of fun. I can actually use this one, and I'll put a little video of me doing it at the end. But I have to lean over kind of far to keep the center of my weight around the center of this Lazy Susan, or it puts the weight off to the edges and creates a little drag on the wood. So if you can find a bigger one, you can make an adult Lazy Susan. But let me just explain here. When you make if you're going to do this just to be as a regular Lazy Susan or as this toy, you want to center it on your bottom piece of wood or whatever you're working with and attach it to the bottom first. So you do that by getting the top piece out of your way, and you attach into the holes that are already there into each of the 4 corners. I used another flange on the bottom here to attach the post. Now, I've seen people do these with wood post on theirs. I was a little paranoid that because when you're sitting on this thing, you're twisting, you're moving your weight around to try to get the spinning to go faster and faster. I was afraid that it would wear down the glue if I just went with a wood post or a wood dowel on each end. So, and I can be a little bit paranoid and over-engineer things sometimes. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe it wouldn't have worn down. But I thought using this screw system and having a threaded pipe with flanges would actually last longer. Who knows if I'm right or wrong, but that's just the route I decided to go. On top of just the screws, I actually super glued the threads right before I screwed my pipe into the flanges. So I can't actually just simply unscrew this. That was another concern, of course. So if you're sitting on top of something and you're twisting it really hard, you might have eventually unscrew part of it. So I went the extra route of super gluing it with the threads. So with the threads in the pipes and the super glue, hopefully this lasts a lifetime. 3 years later, it's holding up perfectly fine. So I'm glad I went the way I went, but you can always try wood dowel if you want. If you do, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. So you attach your Lazy Susan to the bottom piece. You attach your flange centered right in the middle of that, and you make your hole on the top piece centered also. So your hole has to be big enough to accommodate this rounder part on the flange too, but when you're playing around with this, you'll be able to see what's going on. You might have to remove, so obviously don't glue on the top part. It would be a lot easier if this top part wasn't glued on. When I was building this, I didn't have to work like this. I was just removing the screws and putting it back on. So you may have to fiddle around with your Lazy Susan a bit as you're building to adjust things, make the hole bigger, to line it up perfectly, because you want this top piece to spin all the way around this flange without creating any drag, without touching it. But it's not hard. It's just a matter of drilling and sanding and getting everything lined up perfectly. So we're talking like half an hour. It's not as intimidating as it sounds. But then once you've got everything lined up and everything spins perfectly, you can add the top with cut your top and add it with the flange and super glue it like I did, or you can just leave it unglued and see how it holds up for a while, and then maybe if it starts coming unscrewed and getting really annoying, you can go the route that I went and super glue it. You can check out what I used for my stain and paint and everything too if you really like this Captain America design. And totally let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to hear from you. If you come up with your own design, I would love to see it, so tag me on social media or send me an email. There's information in the description about how you can contact me. And yeah, I'll put links to everything in the description, so stop back. I'm gonna be sharing a few builds from the past few years that I never made videos for, but hopefully I can explain to you after it's already done and help you get those things built that I really love around my house. All right, thanks for stopping by.